Okay, so to meet my expectations, you have a pen or a pencil out for notes, and you're awaiting a note page to be delivered to you. So pause the video right now until those note pages have been passed out. All right, so today we're going to add to our study of vertebrates the study of class Aves. And the word aves should sound like something familiar to you, like the word aviation. Aviation is flying. So clearly, the aves is going to have something to do with flying, which is the birds. Okay, so looking at all of these different characteristics like we've been trying to do with all of these different animals, we're going to go ahead and list the characteristics of all birds. And you'll have on your note page in front of you, Class Aves, Characteristics of All Birds 1 through 7. So this is where we're going to be writing these notes in. So the first thing we want to talk about is they are all endothermic vertebrates. Endothermic, so write that on line number 1. Endothermic means that they have an internal regulation of their body heat. Endo meaning inside. So when you were younger and you learned all the terms for animals, you learned warm-blooded. And so warm-blooded is going to be the same thing as endothermic. Secondly, they're going to have a body covering made of feathers. Third, they have a 4-chambered heart, so going to be a little more complex than those reptiles that we learned about. Fourth, are bones that are lightweight and usually hollow. And this is going to be really important when we start talking about their flight, because the lighter weight something is, the easier it's going to be able to fly or be lifted into the air. And so having hollow bones is going to aid in that. Number 5, they have forelimbs that are modified as wings. So when we talked about the characteristics of vertebrates, we talked about how in one of the homework assignments that we did, talked about the fact that you have a skeleton with a cranium and forelimbs. But those forelimbs can look different depending upon the species or the class that you're looking at. So instead of having arms, like we do for our forelimbs, or like a chimp or a dog, birds have wings instead. Number 5. Oh, whoops, we've got this. I'm sorry, I thought we already had that down there. Okay, number 6, they lay calcium-covered eggs. So another way for you to say that they lay eggs is that they're oviparous. Oviparous means that they're laying eggs and that the babies are going to hatch outside of the mother's body. So on number 6, when you're writing this down, yes, calcium-covered eggs, but I would also put in that vocabulary term oviparous. And then number 7, their pelvis is fused together. So go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you have all of these written down 1 through 7 under characteristics of all birds. All right, so we kind of alluded to the fact that there are some things that are special about a bird's body that makes them more able to fly than, say, like you. So they have these special adaptations. Remember, adaptations are changes that have happened over time that were favorable, that aided the animal to be more productive or more successful. And so an adaptation in a bird is going to be something that makes it more favorable for them to fly. So looking at your notes again, this is 1 through 5. Number 1, they have honeycombed bones. And when we say honeycombed, we're talking about spaces of air in between these little slits of bone. If you can picture out what a honeycomb looks like or what a honeycomb design is. So that's going to make them more lightweight. Okay, here's a picture right here that shows you a human bone versus a bird bone. And so when you see the human bone, you see how dense it is. But then look at all of the spaces that are in this so-called honeycomb design in the bird bone. Large air pockets, which are going to make it much lighter. Okay, so number 2, there's those air cavities. Number 3, they're lighter weight, or they have a less weight to them. Number 4, they're going to have about a 7-foot wingspan. Now that's going to be dependent upon the species, and it's going to be in a ratio to their size. And then about a 4-ounce skeleton, so very, very lightweight. Go ahead and pause the video right now and make sure that you have 1 through 5 written in. So a bird's body is absolutely specialized for flight. If you're looking at your note page, this is 1 through 3. A bird's body is specialized for flight. Their wings are structures that enable them to fly. Clearly, we don't have that. And their size is proportional to their body that enable them to do that. They're going to be strong enough to lift their body. Even if we were to glue feathers or have some kind of really cool scientific way to put feathers on our arms, our bodies are much too heavy in relation to what we could do with the length of our arms. So this is a picture right here that's showing you that these wings are there for them to be able to fly. And if you look at their size from here all the way across to here in relation to how small their body is, and then they have these feathers back here that are going to aid in gliding and such. So they really are far more wing and feather than they are body mass. And they're airfoil shape covered with feathers, so they're just talking about the shape and covered with feathers again. Go ahead and write this down too. There's some interesting facts about feathers. They are actually outgrowths of the skin of the birds, and they also have another purpose, that they provide coloration, which would be and obviously aid in flight, but the coloration is going to be special in that it can either attract mates, it can help them blend in if they need to, or stand out. And then if you look at these pictures over here, you can see the different designs of the feathers up close. They almost look like blades, like from when we studied ferns. They have the little barbs on there, and like the fronds. There are 3 main types of feathers that a bird body will have. They have the phyloplumes, which are their sensory feathers. They have contour feathers, which is what they use for flight. And then they have down feathers, which are what they use for insulation. You know, like goose down. You hear, "Go, this is a goose down blanket." Well, and it's used to warm you up. So these 3 different types of feathers are going to have 3 different kinds of jobs. Go ahead and pause the video here and write in those 3 types of feathers. Okay, so their vision is up to 8 times better or keener than human vision. Each eye can move independently, which is not something that your human eyes can do. I mean, you can try it right now. There's a few people in the world that can make one eye move when a different direction once the other one is pointed somewhere, but birds can do this continually. This is not something they actually have to concentrate on. So this shows you a human vision here and what a bird would see here. So I wanted to talk about how animals feed their young, and how they feed, and add that to this. So what do they actually eat? Well, it depends on the bird and the time of year. Some of them are going to eat seeds and berries and fruit and insects. like in wintertime, they're going to kind of scavenge for what they can get. You've made those little peanut butter balls that have bird seeds stuck to them and such. Sometimes they'll eat other birds, can eat eggs. They may even eat small mammals if they're birds of prey, and fish, buds, larvae, aquatic invertebrates, acorns, and other nuts. A lot of this is stuff, like I said, they can just scavenge. They also eat aquatic vegetation, grains, dead animals, garbage, and a whole lot more. Like I said at the beginning, it just depends on the bird and the time of year. Here you've got a picture of a bird that is actually capturing a frog and eating that frog. You've got a bird over here who's eating grains because he's eating corn. So how do they feed their young? So generally a mother bird is going to pre-digest the food and then put the food into the baby's mouth. The babies always open their mouth wide and screech for the food when they're hungry. So the mom will go off and hunt. She'll find some worms. She's going to literally pre-digest that and, basically barf it up for the kids. Here's a picture that my dad took, and this is showing you a bird that has captured a mouse. A pretty cool picture, especially that an amateur could take. All right, let's go back and look at their respiratory system, because that's one of the things that all vertebrates have, is they have a pretty great and functional respiratory system as compared to the invertebrates that we studied before. So number one, they have 9 air sacs in their respiratory system. And if you look at this diagram to the right, you can see these different air sacs that are labeled here on this bird and how they're kind of throughout their whole torso of their body. 2, they have fresh air that's always moving in their body, which would be very important. Number 3, they connect these airways, or this air is always connecting to the lungs and the centers of their bones. So what that's going to do, when you got to have air in those bones and those air pockets, and then it also is going to aid in cooling the bird. Number 5, they don't have dead ends as mammals. Each wing beat moves the air around them, and they never run out of air. Go ahead and pause the video and get these 7 things down. So the benefits of birds to man. Clearly, you never want to hunt something into extinction, because there's a huge balance of nature there. You have this balance of the food web that we have going on in any particular ecosystem. If one part of the ecosystem gets imbalanced, then other things die, or other things are too numerous and they eat up other things, and it causes all kinds of problems. But birds also prove to have benefits specifically to man. One, they're going to eat insects, rodents, and weeds. Those are all things that work against us as humans as we're trying to garden, or even go further than that and farm. And even just in your home, the rodents, you don't want them to be too prolific where they're running through your house, they're eating your grains and such. So birds are going to help with the control of that. Number 2, they're going to spread seeds for flowers and trees. And this was the concept we talked about with pollinators, especially back in our plant and flower unit. Birds are going to be one of your bigger groups of pollinators, especially you think about hummingbirds as they fly from flower to flower. Also, we use birds for food sources, chickens and turkey, and some of the ones that we eat a little less here in America would be duck and goose, and then we have people that hunt pheasant and quail and a whole bunch of other ones. They are a sport, not that I would say that's especially a benefit, but it is something that people do. They go bird hunting. And then number 5, there are a lot of people that have them for pets. Go ahead and pause the video and finish these in your notes. All right, so groupings of birds. So it's not enough just to put the birds in a bird category and then just leave them there. Say, okay, we got a class of birds. Because if you think about it, birds are very, very different amongst themselves. A hummingbird is amazingly different than an eagle, or a duck is really different than, say, a turkey. So let's look at some of these groups. There are 4 of them. So the first one we have are birds of prey. These are the ones that are going to eat some of those larger carnivorous type things like the rodents and the fish, and that were all on that list. Okay, and that's something like an eagle, or like our school mascot, a hawk. Okay. You have flightless birds. These are birds that cannot fly. They may have wings, they may be covered in feathers, but they aren't able to fly. And those are going to be quite a few of them, but you can look right there. You've got like the ostrich and the penguin and some of these other birds over here. You also have the songbirds, and these are the ones that make you feel happy when it's been gray for a long time, and then you finally start hearing them chirp again. You know spring is on the way, and here's a picture, and I don't know what this little guy is, what kind of bird he is, but he is a songbird. And then number 4, you have your waterfowl, and those are going to be like your ducks and swans. And I don't know if that's a roseate spoonbill, what it is, but there's a whole number of water-typed birds. Go ahead and pause the video here and put these lists down. Okay, birds do have special behaviors. First, the males will mark their territory with a distinctive song, and that's really different than how some species mark their territory. 2, they often return to their nesting ground each nesting season. So if they fly off, they're going to return there. Number 3, you have courtship patterns. Some have elaborate courtship rituals, and sometimes it involves songs or plumage displays. Plumage displays means that they puff out their chest. If it's one of like the brown-footed booby, he puffs his chest up. You've got the peacocks that open up their beautiful feathers to attract the females. So it can happen in a lot of different ways, and that's something that when you start working on your nature journal, that you can look up and add into your entry. Here is one of the brown-footed boobies, and you can see he's got his feathers all splayed out, and he also has his chest puffed up, and this is specifically to attract the females. You've got these guys, and they're even going to fight over. And then most birds incubate their eggs, which means they're going to have their eggs in a nest, and they're going to sit on the nest. There were a number of videos that were linked in here, and those are videos that you can go back and you can pull up on YouTube and watch. And some of them are like, this one's going to be about some of the bird behaviors, and then some of the other groupings of birds. I think there was one on groupings of birds. There were some on their flight and some of their different characteristics. And I think there was also a video linked in about feather facts. That's something I can't do from this venue right here, but something I think would definitely be worth your time to go back and look at. If this is for a substitute, I'm going to provide a whole list of these so that you can just enter them in and pull those up for the class.